So the best defense is a great offense. It's a principle that has its roots in military traditions from George Washington to Sun Tzu. However, has a lot more modern applications as well. In the game of chess, you want to always be on the offensive. The idea being you want to force your opponent's pieces where you want them to go, control the board. That way you don't have to constantly worry about defending your pieces. If you ask any seasoned poker player, they'll advocate for what's called a tight but aggressive strategy. Basically, if you have an advantageous hand, you want to be playing that hand aggressively, entering given rounds, encouraging your opponents to fold, maximizing your hand's chance of winning a given round. Of course, the most common use case for this is in professional sports, or sports in general. Many people here will be familiar with this run. This is the infamous Beastquake run by Marshawn Lynch. Despite being tackled by nearly 6 different defenders, due to Lynch's offensive prowess, he's able to run the ball 67 yards into the end zone, leading the Seahawks to an improbable playoff victory. I myself am a Steelers fan, so I had to include this example. But this is the infamous Roethlisberger to Santonio Holmes throw in the Steelers' 6th Super Bowl victory. Notice how Holmes, the receiver, is triple covered in the end zone by defenders, but it doesn't matter. Ball is perfectly placed. Holmes is able to get both feet in bounds. They're able to lead the Steelers to their 6th Super Bowl victory. While these are more micro examples, this is true on a more macro level if you look at professional sports in general. If you look at NFL, average points per game is largely up. Back in the 1970s, it was a much more defensive game. Teams were averaging about 17, 18 points per game. Today, that's closer to about 25 points per game. They've restructured the rules to be much more heavily favor offense. Major League Baseball, same story when it comes to home runs. If you go all the way back to the 1920s, teams were averaging about a half home run per game. Now that's closer to about 1.5 home runs per game. NBA, same story, up and to the right. You can see back in the 2000s, teams were averaging about 95 points per game. Today, that's closer to 105 points per game. So what I like to do is to really take lessons from other organizations and companies and really figure out how we can apply them to what we do as marketers. And one thing I can't help but think about is if we know that offense is such a crucial component of a lot of these organization strategies, well, why when we think about SEO, does SEO feel like we're constantly playing defense all of the time? Like every time someone sends us a new Search Console error to investigate, we want to turn into Ron Swanson on the swivel chair and just slowly turn away from the person making the request. And we know Google updates their algorithm multiple times per year. And if we're not proactive, like Lily talked about, we turn into the teenage boy from Inside Out that's seen a girl for the first time. Every time they hand us a new one, completely freaking out, running around, ending up on the fetal position, upending our entire strategies. So I post on my LinkedIn a lot. You can follow me there if you want. And one of the things I talked about is that the best SEOs that I know are constantly playing offense instead of defense. They're not reacting to every single algorithm update, and they're not trying to fix every Search Console error. Instead, they're looking for new content opportunities to break into new markets. They're experimenting, and they're looking ahead to the future of search. That's what we're going to talk about today. How, as a community, can we start to play offense instead of defense when it comes to SEO? So I'm going to talk about this in a few key areas: identifying new content opportunities, choosing which pages to optimize, technical SEO, getting data behind key initiatives, experimentation, and then talk about the future of AI in search. So first, let's talk about identifying new content opportunities, because at its heart, this sounds inherently offensive. We want to build new content, rank for new keywords, and eventually get more organic traffic and leads to our site. So let's say we're LendingTree and we want to start a new content initiative. Well, we might start with something like a traditional content gap analysis. Use a tool like MozPro, and we plug in our domain and then 3 competitor domains. And then we naturally see, hey, what are some keywords that they rank for that we don't? Now, there's nothing wrong with this, but at its core, it's a little bit on the defensive side. We're being reactionary, and we're not really putting into context, are these important terms for us? So a way that we can shift this and make it more offensive is really think about which topical areas do we need more content for? What are our highest revenue products or services? What do we want to be positioned to Google as a topical authority in? So a slight shift on this would be if we know that personal loans are a really big line of business for us, we might shift to, might be a problem with the clicker here, the slides. There we go. If we know that personal loans are a high priority line of business for us, we might go to and then type in personal loans here and then filter down. Then we can see just personal loan content. Now we can start to do things like develop content hubs and utilize internal linking and start to build content in these topical areas and position ourselves as an authority to Google in. Maybe we've done some persona research and we know that credit scores are really big for our consumers. Well, we can filter down and look at credit scores and just content opportunity in those areas and then just get a targeted list of content opportunities that speaks to our ideal persona. This is going to be much more offensive, much more proactive than simply reacting to whatever competitors are doing. We can actually be targeted in which topical areas that we build out new content in. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about choosing which pages to optimize. This is like a really big part of SEO, something we do every day, whether we realize it or not. Common way of approaching it is this. We take some of our key pages, and then we perform some sort of comparison month over month, year over year, and then we say, okay, I'm going to take a look at which pages are down the most in terms of organic traffic. Aha, found them. I'm going to go and start optimizing those pages. Once again, nothing wrong with this, but it's a little on the defensive side. Once again, we're being a little reactionary, and we're not putting into context, like, are these pages even valuable toward our business? So I'm going to recommend two different ways that we can be more offensive with choosing which pages to optimize, a basic way and a more advanced way. Basic way is this, just simply finding which queries are more likely tied to revenue. So instead of sorting by organic traffic, we're going to sort by total revenue, whatever our core lead KPI is. Then when we do this, we'll likely get a completely different set of pages. From there, what you can start doing is going into Search Console and start plugging these pages in. Then you'll start to see of pages that are down the most in terms of a core KPI, which queries are down the most in terms of clicks and impressions. Now, you've better aligned your on-page optimizations with a key financial metric, and it'll be much easier to get buy-in for these optimization opportunities. You've better connected them to revenue, leads, or whatever's driving actual business for your site. So that's the basic way. The more advanced way looks at things a little bit more holistically, and that's really finding which categories do we need more visibility in. So this works well on sites where there's content and we have content in a lot of different topical areas. So an extreme example of this would be a Macy's. They have content in all these different topical areas, right? Home, beauty, shoes, furniture, toys, a lot of different topical areas. For some of these topical areas, they're gonna rank well in. For some of them, they're not going to perform as well in. And we can perform an analysis to see which categories they excel in, which ones they struggle in, and where should they be spending their time focusing on their on-page optimizations. So I highly recommend using a breadcrumb, especially on larger sites. It's a great way to naturally taxonomize your content for both Google and users. If you have breadcrumb, you'll often use what's called breadcrumb list structured data. That can actually be extracted by using a tool like Screaming Frog. Doing this, and then with a little bit of Excel manipulation, what you can do is match up your breadcrumb taxonomies with the keywords you're actually tracking, and then segment those out in your rank tracking tool of choice. So here I use Stat, and I can create keyword segments for appliances, audio, baking, bath and body, bathroom. And now I can drill into any one of these individual topical areas and see, how do I rank? Do I rank better for appliances than audio, better for baking than bath and body? How do I compare to my whole site? Here we perform that analysis, and you can actually see each category compared to the site mean. So for categories at the top, like bath, decorative accents, kitchen, and dining, we might not need to prioritize these pages as much because we can see that we rank pretty well for them and as a category as a whole. But when we look toward the bottom, like wall art, mattresses, rugs, well, if those are high priority lines of business for us, we should be prioritizing those in terms of our on-page optimizations. Now, maybe our content isn't as good there, maybe it's just more competitive, maybe we don't even have the content we need. Whatever the case is, now we have data to see holistically which categories we perform well in, which ones we struggle in. It's going to be so much more impactful than just looking at which pages are down the most in terms of organic traffic. All right, so technical SEO prioritization. It's an area that I'm particularly passionate about because I think technical SEO is the place it is easiest to go down the most rabbit holes and start spending your time playing defense and doing things that don't actually matter. It's almost no fault of our own. If you just think about the sheer number of tools we have access to, it's almost overwhelming, right? And even the data within those tools. Here, I just performed a very simple screaming frog crawl, and all I'm doing is scrolling down the report. You can see all the different data that you get. Canonicals, no index, pagination, URLs not in the sitemap, redirect chains, alt text. List goes on and on and on. Search Console is another big culprit of this, right? This is the GoFish digital inbox with all our different Search Console notifications. We get hundreds a week. Some might be worth looking into. Vast majority probably aren't. And repeat after me, fixing random Search Console errors is not an SEO strategy. If you do this, you will spend your entire days playing defense and not doing the things that actually matter for your site. So how can we better play offense, right? Well, there's a few key frameworks that I like to go off of. One is evaluate the percentage of total pages. Does not matter how many pages a technical item impacts. It only matters what percentage that is of the site aggregate. So very simple framework here. High priority items impact a large percentage of pages. Low priority impacts a very small percentage of pages. It's a good example in Google's index coverage report. We can see that it's a large site. Every single issue getting flagged has hundreds of thousands of URLs. However, the top 3 account for over 80% of the issues getting flagged. We probably want to start looking at those to see if they're high priority technical issues and if they're having a large impact on our site. And even within these reports, finding common themes, commonalities where that impact a large percentage of pages. In this report, we can see that there appears to be an issue with our internal search results page. We might want to take a look at that template first because it's impacting such a large percentage of our page templates. Next is evaluating the issue type. Not all issue types are created equal. Some technical issues are much higher priority than others. Obviously, it's a big it depends based on your site, but this is a pretty good framework to go by. High priority are going to be your indexation issues. Medium priority are going to be more crawling issues. Lower is going to be response codes, redirects, and other ad hoc issues. Of course, it's going to depend on your individual site's landscape. It's a good example on the Walmart site. If you worked as a technical SEO on Walmart, there is probably an infinite number of technical SEO items you could be fixing at any given time. However, when we did a little research, we found that Google wasn't able to index this products you might also like section on their product pages. It's going to be a high priority item to fix. It's going to impact a very large percentage of pages, every single product page, right? It's going to be content on every single page Google can't see. It's going to be internal links that Google's not able to crawl through. And to some degree, it's going to be site architecture that Google isn't able to understand. So despite all the high priority issues on Walmart's site, this is going to be one of the most priority because it's an indexation issue, because it impacts such a large percentage of pages. Third recommendation is to take your recommendations as close to the end as possible. If you're working with the developer or engineer, do as much work for them to actually get them to the finish line. It's going to help you play offense with your technical SEO and really increase the chances that your items are actually going to get implemented. Like if you're making recommendations to improve cumulative layout shift, don't just say you have cumulative layout shift. Use the tools at your disposal. Use a tool like web page test to actually show where in the page load is the shift happening, where is the biggest shift happening, send before and after screenshots so they can actually visualize the issue. If you're making a structured data recommendation, actually provide sample schema markup for an individual page template. If you're making a crawling recommendation, create a markup of what the robots.txt file look like so the developer can copy and paste. The closer you take your technical recommendations, as close to the end as possible, the more likely your recommendations are to get implemented, the better you're playing offense with your technical SEO. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about getting data behind key initiatives. I think as a community, we tend to do a really good job at finding all of these creative ways to improve the SEO of our sites. But one thing that we might struggle with from time to time is actually getting data to get buy-in. And that's big because I'd argue that getting buy-in is just as important as the actual SEO work. If no one is there to action on or implement your ideas, well, they're not going to be as effective as they could be. Fortunately, the good news is that for most SEO recommendations, you can get data to get buy-in due to the number of tools that we have access to. So we need to create new content. Probably like the most common recommendation in all of SEO. How can we get data to get buy-in for this initiative? Many different ways to do this, but one of my favorites was written by 𝗙cie𝗹𝗹liche. He writes the SEO MBA newsletter. Highly recommend subscribing if you don't already. Fantastic read. He talks about framing every single content initiative in terms of an opportunity cost. What's the opportunity cost of not creating a particular piece of content? So we were actually able to do this analysis for this individual site. We set a target content goal that they should be hitting every single year. Then, using a combination of traffic, conversion rates, and annualized deal value, we were able to figure out what the opportunity cost was of them not hitting their content goal. Then we were able to go back and say, hey, last year, there was an opportunity cost in $2 million in annualized revenue because you weren't creating content at the rate that you should be. Notice this has nothing to do with the actual SEO of their site, but it's an extremely powerful data point that we can leverage to get buy-in for a key content initiative. We need to improve internal linking. A little more technical, a little more nebulous. Still ways that we can get data to get buy-in by using the tools at our disposal. The great Patrick Stocks wrote this fantastic article on search engine land that talks about how you can visualize equity with a tool called 𝗙cie. Screaming Frog has their force-directed crawl diagrams that visualize site architecture. These are tools that you can use to get buy-in for internal linking initiatives. If you follow Patrick's article, you'll get a visualization that looks like this. The different colors represented here represent different sections of a site. The lines between those colors represent the internal links. So if we were seeing the particular section was disconnected, that could help us get buy-in for an internal linking initiative. It would be data that we could use to leverage. So whatever your recommendations are, whatever your high priority items are, don't just send them off into the ether and hope someone implements them. Take the time, double down, get data to get buy-in for your high priority recommendations. It's going to help you play offense. It's going to help your ideas get pushed through as you actually have data to back up the reasons why you're recommending something. And make it visual if you can. That's also a big, big plus. All right, so experimentation. I think experimentation is one of the best ways to go from a good SEO to a great SEO. You can use experimentation to break new SEO ground, or you can also use it to get data to get buy-in for initiatives. We use a pretty simple experimentation process. First, we develop a hypothesis. Then we implement some type of testing frameworks, generally using control and testing groups with keyword segmentation. And then finally, measuring the results. So this is an actual case study of how we implemented a testing framework for an individual publisher site. This publisher site was a really, really large authority in their space, but their content wasn't ranking as well as it should be. When you would go to an individual article, users would be immediately presented with a paywall, the bane of every SEO's existence. And we checked this from a technical standpoint, and everything looked good. Google could crawl the content behind the paywall, could index the content, they were using the proper structured data. However, we still thought this might be limiting their visibility, but we didn't have data to back it up. So instead of just making an uneducated guess, we said, hey, let's perform an experiment. First, let's develop a hypothesis. So easy enough, right? The hypothesis that removing the paywall will help improve visibility. Next, we developed a testing framework. What we did was we used keyword segmentation. We said, hey, take a sample set of your articles, and let's completely remove the paywall from that content. Then what we're going to do is we're going to group the keywords we're tracking into two different groups. We're going to have a control group where the paywall remains, and then we're going to have a testing group where we actually remove the paywall from that content. And then we'll compare how these two segments perform against each other over time. Next step was to analyze the results. Here you can see the keyword ranking data for both segments is the first page ranking data for the control group. We see that in a 5-month period that rankings improve slightly, improving pretty slightly in that 5-month time period. We then compared this against the testing group. Testing group showed a much different story. Testing group saw a much more rapid improvement in terms of first page rankings, going from about 3% of keywords ranking on the first page to about 16% of keywords ranking on the first page. Now we had data to back up that, yes, removing the paywall helps improve the visibility of your content, but we wouldn't have had that data without first testing and proposing an experiment and playing offense with that individual recommendation. So with whatever you're doing, if you're having a hard time getting buy-in, or you want to test a new feature, or you're performing a new test, propose it as an experiment. Say, hey, let's take a low priority section of the site, let's perform an experiment, let's create control groups, testing groups, and we'll see which one performs better. It's going to help you at least get some data to verify or invalidate your SEO hypotheses. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about the future of AI in search. Very divisive topic, everything from AI is going to take all of our jobs to ChatGPT could never replace me. So out of curiosity, I took a poll and I wanted to see what we thought of as an industry. And I said, do you think that ChatGPT will disrupt SEO? And in this unscientific poll, nearly 2/3 of people, 64%, said yes. So, and I tend to agree with them. That's why I think as a community that we need to be embracing AI principles. Yes, the tools aren't perfect, and there's definitely things that need to be validated, but if you think about how good the technology is right now, and then expand that to a 1-year, a 2-year, a 5-year time horizon, it's only gonna get better, and it's only gonna make today's technology look primitive. I think the SEOs that are playing offense are the ones who are learning how to use these tools and implement it into their day-to-day processes. So I took another poll on my LinkedIn. I said, do you use ChatGPT as part of your regular SEO workflows? So again, the majority, 52% of people said yes. The poll was taken back in March, so about 4 months after ChatGPT had been released. I then went back again and took the same poll in June. Now 72% of people said yes. So once again, according to the unscientific data, we are seeing more and more marketers use this as part of their day-to-day processes. I think this makes a lot of sense, right? There's a lot of really good use cases for using these tools as part of your workflows. It's a great article from Search Engine Land from Tom Demers where he talks about how he used ChatGPT to scale keyword research and group them into different topical clusters. You can use it for featured snippet optimization, schema generation, robot-style text creation. There's all types of different good use cases for these tools. You can also use it as a personal assistant to validate your content. Here, I took content about how to break in running shoes and just asked ChatGPT, how do I make this content better? How do I make this the best possible answer for the target keyword? And it gave me 7 different recommendations. Common mistakes, FAQs, best running shoes for different foot types. Here, I'm not asking it just to straight write content for me, but using it as a personal assistant to guide the content we already have and ask how to make it better. You can also use it to scale out basic SEO processes. We created a Google Sheets function that actually connects to the ChatGPT API. We can use it to really do pretty basic things like create title tags and meta descriptions. It basically feeds ChatGPT the URL slug, the target keyword, the title tag and meta description, and then from just using that, you can load it into the first Excel function, and then you can drag and drop and get recommendations for title tags, meta descriptions directly in Sheets. Great for all those random requests where people say, create a bunch of meta descriptions for my site, right? You can use it to scale out that process. If anyone wants to see an article on how to do this, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to share that with you. I think there's also opportunity beyond just the tactical, though. We can also use it to enhance our knowledge base as an industry. The late, great Bill 𝗙ście used to analyze Google patents that were really technical and his content was really long form. Well, what we've started to do was run Google's articles through ChatGPT and ask it to explain it to us like we're in high school. ChatGPT is able to give us a pretty good summary. How many of us struggle with the technical side of things, whether it's analyzing articles from thought leaders like Bill or Google's documentation? Now these tools make the content more democratized as they can explain it to us and make it accessible for the community at large. However, I think the biggest use case of these tools is AI is going to help us become a community of creators. Now, despite our technical abilities, we're able to create more technical solutions just by using simple prompting. So for instance, I think it's really going to open up Screaming Frog. For instance, here I prompted it and said, hey, create a Screaming Frog extract for breadcrumb list structure data on REI site. I've done this before. It's taken me hours and pulling like other engineers from our team in. Here it was able to create XPath in about 1 minute's time that worked. We can use it to create our own custom tools and solutions to improve our efficiencies. I don't know how to code. I've never created a Chrome extension, but here in about 30 minutes' time, we were able to create a Chrome extension that extracts basic information from a page, title tag, meta description, publish date, H1 tags, right? Now we can create the tools that are custom to us and our processes. Our co-founder, Dan Hinckley, was able to further iterate on this. He was actually able to run the extract information back through ChatGPT's API. Basically, within the extension, he was able to get something that provides recommendations for title tags, meta descriptions, new sections of content, FAQs, directly in the Chrome extension itself. Now it's a tool that our team can use and leverage in our processes, so we're not starting from zero on a new recommendation. We can use these if we want, but it's a tool that can help guide us to improve our efficiencies and our optimizations. So I think the SEOs that are playing offense are going to be the ones that are using these tools to improve their efficiencies, to enhance their knowledge base, and to create the custom tools and solutions to do their jobs and empower them to do their jobs better. So to wrap up, I know in SEO, it is so easy to get swept away playing defense all of the time with all the different things that come up. But I believe the SEOs that are proactive, constantly looking to play offense, and constantly looking to really look at the business value of their sites and leveraging new tools and processes are going to be the ones that thrive in the long term. Thank you so much, MozCon.